The Franciscans were the first to cultivate grapes in California. Padre Junipero Serra planted grape seeds and plants in San Diego in 1769, establishing the California wine industry. It stretched 600 kilometers, 373 miles, all the way to Sonoma as the grapevines were transported north. Historians placed the first harvest in California in 1782. The grapes were cultivated in a mission near Los Angeles, and the mission grape became the primary grape variety in the 1880s. Napa Valley and Sonoma County are well-known wine districts in California. While wild grapes flourished in the region, George Calvert Yount planted some of the first vines for wine grape cultivation here. John Patchett is credited with establishing the first vineyard and winery. He had his first production 3 years after starting. The Corbel brothers began manufacturing champagne in Sonoma County in the 1880s. Charles Krug opened Napa Valley's first winery in 1861, and by 1889, there were over 140 wineries, including Schramsberg, Beringer, and Inglenook. Interestingly, at the same time, Southern California was the 19th century wine industry's center. Californians, Americans, and the French planted vineyards all along the Los Angeles River. In the 1870s, Los Angeles' nickname was the City of Vines. In 1886, a disease killed most grapevines. In the 1890s, wine firms bought grapes, created wine, and shipped it worldwide. San Francisco's fog-cooled summers are actually amazing for storing wine. By the 1890s, the city had 100 wineries. 7 wine firms combined in 1894 to form the California Wine Association to stabilize the market. After a vicious wine battle, CWA controlled 80% of California's wine production and distribution. Moving forward into the early 20th century, California's booming wine business was shipping bottles as far as Australia, Central America, England, and Asia. The California Wine Association developed the world's largest winery after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire. Winehaven was a city-state with worker housing, a school, a boss's mansion, train tracks, a port, and 10 million gallons of wine storage. All development in the wine industry came to a halt, though, after the 18th Amendment was enacted in 1919, making the sale of alcoholic drinks illegal in the United States. Because there existed a legal loophole that allowed anyone to make 200 gallons of non-intoxicating cider and fruit each year, many people began manufacturing their own wine. Because there were so many new home winemakers, the cost of grapes skyrocketed, and to meet demand, growers removed their high-end wine grapes and replaced them with lower-quality grape varieties. When the 18th Amendment was taken away in 1933, the once thriving wine business in California was already gone. Before 1920, there were more than 2,500 commercial wineries in the United States, but by the end of Prohibition, less than 100 survived. From 1919 to 1925, production went down 94%. Napa's wine valleys slowly recovered as well. John Daniel Jr. revived Inglenook. Georges de la Tour reestablished Belleleu Vineyards. Louis Martini created his winery. And the Mondavi family bought Charles Krug's winery. Andrei Chulichev, a Russian living in France, worked for BV in Napa Valley and became a wine legend. But that's an interesting story for another time. By 1960, there were 271 commercial wineries. Despite tax legislation and marketing constraints, California wine shipments soared in the 1970s. 1976 was an amazing year. At the Paris tasting, Napa Valley was clearly put on the map. Bordeaux and Burgundy were blind taste tested against the California Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay. Chateau Montelena Chardonnay and Stag Leap's Cabernet Sauvignon won. Napa Valley's wineries would rise from a few dozen to several hundred. By 1980, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms adopted labeling rules, allowing California to designate viticultural zones based on historical, climate, and geographic factors, and to feature these areas on wine labels. California has 139 American viticultural areas. The first Napa Valley wine auction was held at Meadowood Resort in 1981. Over the years, Auction Napa Valley has become the world's most recognized charity wine event. Since 1981, they've donated $200 million to local health care, youth education, and affordable housing. The Bay Area counties of Napa and Sonoma contribute to California's share of the nation's $6.5 billion grape industry. Weather changes can hurt grapes, but they don't always kill them. Wildfires and warmer weather can change the way wine tastes, which depends on the chemical makeup of grapes and how they grow. Many growers and winemakers are becoming increasingly concerned about shifting wine flavors and ultimately destroying vintages. It should also be noted that approximately 25% of all vineyards in California are committed to organic, biodynamic, and sustainable winemaking processes. 90% of the wine consumed in the United States is produced in California. Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay are the two most prominent grape types. Nearly 95,000 acres of California's total 525,000 acres are planted to Chardonnay, whereas 80,000 acres are devoted to Cabernet Sauvignon. Other grape varieties in the top 5 include Merlot, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, Zinfandel, Syrah, and Cabernet Franc. If California were a country, it would be the world's 4th largest wine producer, trailing only France, Italy, and Spain. These are interesting things with JC.